Hey, welcome to day 17. You made it. Today we're talking about observing the surrounding literary context, the plot, the characters, the setting, the environment, and we're in 1 Corinthians chapter 3. Paul is writing a letter to the Corinthian church. Now, what we need to ask is, in this letter, what is the surrounding situations? What's going on in Corinth, right? What's the environment like? What's the church like? Well, in 1 Corinthians 3, you're going to see exactly what it's like. And I'm going to highlight in yellow anything that gives us an idea of what's happening in the environment of Corinth for the church there. And that'll help us make sense of what Paul is saying, all right? So Paul says, look, brothers, I couldn't address you as spiritual people, but as people of the flesh and as infants in Christ. So Paul is talking about how he could not give them solid food. That's why he fed them with milk, for you were not ready for it. So they're infants in Christ. They're not ready for what? Solid food, right? They're not spiritual people. They're people of the flesh, right? And even now, you are not ready. So presently, as Paul is writing this, what's the condition of Corinth? What's the environment like? Well, a bunch of fleshly infants in Christ that can't handle solid food, and they're not ready when they should be by now, right? So you are still of the flesh, right? So that's what's going on. For while there is jealousy and strife among you, are you not of the flesh and behaving only in a human way? So far, we have Corinthians aren't off to a great start, man. There's jealousy and strife. I don't know why I said layers. Like jealousy and strife are among them. They're behaving in a human way, and that's not a good thing, right? For when one says, and again, this is going to give us the context for what Paul says, because he's going to say a lot of things that seem like harsh, and it's like, well, think about where they are and what they're doing. A bunch of people are saying, I follow Paul, and another says, I follow Apollos. Are you not being merely human? So guess what? They're picking sides for whatever their favorite teacher is. What then is Apollos and what is Paul? Servants through whom you believed as the Lord assigned to each. Why is Paul clarifying this? Well, the context tells us that there's factions, there's divisions. People are picking sides. Well, I'm with Paul, I'm with Apollos, I'm with Peter. As he'll say, I'm with Cephas. And that's the context of this statement. Look, we're just servants through whom you believed. I planted, Apollos watered, but God gave the growth. Right? So what's been their experience? Well, this church was planted by Paul. Apollos came along and watered this church, but ultimately God is the one who gave the growth. So we have a bunch of people who have been grown and developed by God himself through Paul who planted and through Apollos who watered. That's the context. That's the environment. So neither he who plants nor he who waters is anything, but only God who gives the growth. Now this statement on its own, you just go, yeah, true, but he's making a point by saying this. This is not just truth, it's truth with a purpose. He's addressing the fact that they're taking sides with Paul and Apollos, and he's trying to let them know, listen, I just planted, Apollos watered, God's the one who gets all the glory, right? God gives the growth. He's trying to put him and Apollos in their proper places as servants. He who plants and he who waters are one. Each will receive his wages according to his labor. For we are God's fellow workers. You are God's field, God's building, right? So he goes on to talk about what it means that they're a field or a building. According to the grace of God given to me, like a skilled master builder, I laid a foundation. So this church, the foundation of it is laid by Paul, and someone else is building on it currently. So that's presently going on. Past tense, Paul came into Corinth, stayed there for, I believe, a year and a half, I could be wrong, and he laid the foundation of the church, stayed there, discipled, preached, loved them, served them. But now that he's left, someone else is building on this foundation. That's the context that he's writing in. Let each one take care how he builds upon it, right? For no one can lay a foundation other than that which is laid, which is Jesus Christ. Now, if anyone builds on the foundation with gold or silver or precious stones, wood, hay, or straw, well, each one's work will become manifest, for the day will disclose it, right? Do you know why? He'll go on and say, because it's actually going to be revealed by fire. If I can get this. It'll be revealed by fire, and the fire will test what sort of work each one has done. If the work that anyone has built on the foundation survives, he will receive a reward. But if anyone's work is burned up, he will suffer loss, even though he himself will be saved, but only as through fire. Now, these statements, the context is a divided church, people who are fleshly, infants in Christ, not ready for the strong spiritual food. They're behaving with jealousy and strife. They're taking sides and dividing, and factions are forming. And Paul's addressing all this, and this statement finds itself in the context of that kind of a church. Now, that will help us make sense of really what this meant to the Corinthian church, right? Is that there's a lot of stuff going on that looks spiritual, looks religious, looks like it honors God. But Paul is saying ultimately, on that day, all of our work will be tested. Whether you took sides, whether you lived in jealousy and strife, or whether your work was truly of eternal value to God, right? So that's how you read the context of, the epistles, which is where we find ourselves today. This is one of Paul's epistles, a letter to a church. And so you can make sense of this on its own for sure, but it almost gives it a different flavor and gives it some oomph when you know who he's writing to and what's going on in that church. It would kind of be a shot at their, fake religion and spiritual works that look good, but they don't amount to anything. All right? So when you read the Bible today, I know this was a shorter one, especially in the epistles, wherever you find yourself, read the context. What's going on? Who is it written to? What are they like? Who's the author? Right? What are the events that transpired before this and after and during? That will really bring meaning to what's being said in that letter, in that gospel, whatever it may be. All right? In the next episode, on day 18, what we're going to do is we're going to look at allusions to Jesus. This is another thing you need to learn how to observe, which really is what the biblical text is all about, all right? So I'll see you guys in day 18, which is going to be tomorrow, all right? Bye.